Hello and welcome back. It is day 8 of September, the month series on lifelong learning. My name is Joon Kim, and it's my pleasure to be here. I want to thank Life Coach University for giving me a chance to contribute using my experience and expertise to pay it forward. Every one of us has something to offer, so please consider paying it forward in your own unique way. All right, so let's get to today's topic. Today's topic is about resilience and grit. They're very similar, but they both very much speak to something that we in higher education these days are very interested in. So when it comes to higher education, and I'll just use a broader term, college, I know that in certain places around the world, there is a distinction that's made between colleges and university. However, here in the US, colleges and universities are pretty synonymous. They are education beyond high school. So what we in education are looking for, besides the strong grades, because I know that regardless of culture, the expectation or the goal and aspiration is for our students to do well in school, to get good grades and make good marks. However, it's becoming more and more evident that simply doing well is not enough. Now, that taken out of context can sound horrible. Then how much more can a student do? What can we expect our children to do more? I mean, if they already achieved excellent grades, what more could they possibly do? And so what I mean by that is not only the academic accomplishments, but really at what cost? I think the pandemic certainly exacerbated the problem of mental health amongst not only our students, but adults, our seniors, the entire population really. And so this concept of perseverance and grit, and as I open with resilience, why is it that some people are able to bounce back and keep going through and others aren't able to do the same thing? So it's a very fascinating question, and I wish I can tell you that within our session today I will have the answer for you, but I can't, because as of right now there isn't a clear answer. But what I hope to do in this session is to really help challenge and share with you some things to think about in your role, either as parents, or maybe if you're a student watching this, or maybe you are a employee who's looking to support a fellow coworker during some difficult times. So what is this concept of grit and perseverance and resilience, right? Why the ability to bounce back or go through very difficult times. And for me, what I wanted to focus on is comfort, or rather discomfort, because this is something that is almost a prerequisite to building resilience. For consistency's sake, I will use resilience for the rest of this talk, but you can certainly refer to it as grit as well. I mean, again, the point is not to differentiate the fine granular differences between these, because again, I know that there are coaches out there who specifically and specializes in this area. So my talk, along with the entire series, is really to give a broad but really helpful, easily applicable to your everyday living. So going back to resilience. So how does one build resilience? And first of all, can we define resilience? As we have done, we want to always define these concepts. And resilience, as I have previously said, is how do you, in the face of adversity and challenges, keep going? Or when that challenge puts you back and really takes you out of the running, how do you get back in, right? How do you not give up? And that resilience really it starts even from just culturally. How do we look upon resilience? I think we can all say that resilience is looked upon as a very noble and admirable trait. I think we can say this because we can see it in our culture, in our literature, in our stories, in our movies. A lot of this is exemplified in characters where they encounter some difficulty, right? And there are various literary theories or models to illustrate this better, but for the simplicity's sake, we know that characters face adversity. And if it's a successful and very popular story, it usually has to have the character overcoming whatever that adversity might be. So it could be Cinderella, right? A very popular story where Cinderella is treated very poorly, and that this individual is treated very bad, but yet she does not reciprocate that ill treatment, but actually returns with very kind treatment. So how does one get through difficulties, and how do they get through it despite these challenges? And again, coming back to my context, my field of education, why do some students continue on? How are they able to keep going despite maybe what we would deem not successful or failures? And I think there in and of itself is yet another important concept, is what is failure? And we know that very frequently we look at things differently, or what we would call mindsets. So are we looking at failures as a negative sort of dead end, or are we looking at them as an opportunity? Because truly failures are some of the best learning moments. And those of us that would consider ourselves lifelong learners, we know that failures are some of the best places to learn, because very often when we're successful, we really don't think about it too much. I really can't think of very many individuals when you're successful, you dwell on and you reflect upon how and why you were successful. But in comparison, when things don't go right and the thing fails and you are caught by surprise, what happened? Why did it go wrong? We actually ruminate on that much more. And so we're more likely to learn from those failures. So in terms of talking about resilience, I think we also have to talk about comfort and discomfort, as I said. And one of the most simplest demonstration I want to share with you, it's going to take a little bit of participation. So if you're watching this, please participate. So go ahead and close your eyes. Close your eyes, make sure you can't see, and take your two hands and interlace them and lock them together, okay? So you're putting your two hands together. In other words, you're folding your hands together. Once you have it firmly locked in place, every single finger is alternating between your left, right, and so forth. You open your eyes. You open your eyes and you look down. Look at your hands. Don't let go of your hands. Just look down and see for yourself which hand is on top, or which thumb is on top. So for me, I can see that my right thumb is on top. Now, some of you may have your left thumb on top. So not doing anything at the moment, just keeping it at your original position. You look down and you see that your right thumb is on top, or as I mentioned, some of you, the left thumb is on top. So now what I want you to do is quickly close your eyes and take your hands and do the alternative. So if your right thumb was on top, move it to the below and move your left thumb to the top, okay? So just shift your hands so then your opposite thumb is now on top. Okay, open your eyes. Now, even before you opened your eyes, you should have felt a little something. What is that something? And when I do this demonstration with students, the most common word response is weird, awkward, right? And some other synonyms. But it's something that they claim it doesn't feel right. It is uncomfortable is eventually what some students will say. So what you can do is just flip back and forth between your right thumb on top or your left thumb on top. And what you will get to feel is that comfort of what is your natural go-to preferred formation. So some of us are more right thumb on top or left. And when you do the opposite, it really does feel weird, right? If you're honest and you do this, it feels awkward. It feels something's off. And a lot of this has to do with, I think many of us have come to learn that the neurology or the neuroscience of our brain is just that. It is something that changes over time. It is not always constant. And in fact, we know that because many of us will say things like, I'm not young and you can't teach a dog new tricks. Or you might have heard younger people are able to learn new languages better than older individuals. So that right there is what they refer to as neuroplasticity. So again, how plastic, how malleable our nervous system is and our brain in terms of learning and changing, because as we age, our neural connections and just sort of the structural layout, it is actually it's growing in the beginning when we're younger, but as we age, they sort of become more established. And so what we use very frequently is more pronounced and developed in our brain, and those things that are not used basically go away. So when we do that, I mean, we've clearly done it more often and reinforced a particular position in our brains, that is going to definitely feel more comfortable because it is something familiar. And when something is unfamiliar, it's going to be uncomfortable. So why are we talking about comfort and discomfort? Again, it is a prerequisite to developing that resilience. Because resilience is nothing more than sort of aggregated, built up, very developed sense of discomfort that one can overcome. That it is something that they are now able to manage because they have had prior practice. If you're someone who's never had any difficulty, any discomfort, how are you supposed to overcome that first challenge, especially if that first challenge is a pretty significant one? I think we can all agree that we build up our tolerance or level of resilience. If we were to put various levels of difficulty or discomfort, that we would all agree that you just can't go from level 1 to level 7, that we would need to build upon our exposure to these discomforts and prior experiences of overcoming such life experiences. So again, going back to education, especially in the area that I work with, where students are pursuing advanced graduate level academics, a lot of the admissions offices and committees are looking for evidence that you are a student who is resilient, because graduate school is rigorous, it's demanding, and life goes on. When you're in graduate school, you do not get to take a break from being part of a family. If you are in a relationship, you don't get to just click pause and expect that significant other to be waiting for you when you're done with school. So how do you juggle all the different things going on in your life? And obviously, resilience is a great indicator of how one would manage all those challenges while still doing school. So again, this could look very different for parents, but nonetheless, the concept is very applicable. How do you come back from these difficult setbacks? Maybe something terrible happened at work and you get home and now you're tasked with, let's say cooking dinner, if that is what you typically do. That would be a low level sort of resilience example. But, I guess it depends on what happened at work. Finding out that you have to move office would be very different magnitude of discomfort than you were let go by the company. So different levels of stress and challenge. So, comfort, discomfort, just as we have demonstrated, it is something that can be improved. And if you do it enough times, it doesn't feel awkward. It doesn't feel weird. And I have done this demonstration enough times that though I naturally tend to put my right thumb on top, I can easily put my left thumb on top, and it feels, it doesn't feel quite the same as the right thumb on top, but it doesn't feel as awkward. So, so this sort of feeling of uneasiness and discomfort, it's not a bad thing. In fact, there are some examples I want to share with you that illustrate how it's an opportunity for further growth and improvement. So in education, we have this concept called scaffolding, right? Scaffolding being, if any of us have ever seen window cleaners, they have these ropes tied and there's a plank and somebody's standing on it, and this gets pulled up higher and higher. And so you can wash windows that are at much higher floors. Well, just as that scaffold goes up, a scaffold is there to support you as you progress through. And so in education, scaffolding, sometimes they refer to this area of where someone is, okay, where someone is currently, and where someone is trying to get to, their sort of goal, if you will. And this space in between, they would refer to that as the zone of proximal distance. It's kind of the area where a learner can be expected to accomplish. And it's a reasonable zone, right, if you will. You're not going to have an 8-year-old. This is where the 8-year-old is doing arithmetic. And then you want to get them to calculus. I mean, that zone is just way too big. So the zone of proximal distance, or the ZPD, is actually reasonable. It's scaffolding, right? It's building incremental progress and building a little bit more progress and then a little bit more progress. So again, it's a very reasonable, manageable progression. So in that same way, just really realizing that our resilience is not a bad thing. When we do have a tough day, when we get some curveball thrown at us, the day did not go the way we wanted, something happened to make us not like that experience. Change the way we look at it. Think of it as that it's in that ZPD, it's in that zone to help elevate you to the next level. And this is certainly one of the ways that we are able to all increase in our resilience, our ability to overcome difficulties. I mean, we just outright need that resistance, right? I mean, the most obvious example is when we work out, right? I mean, the most obvious example, I can't not use this example because it's very evident. When we're working out, do we not feel discomfort? Do we not feel pain, depending on how heavy the resistance is? When you're working out, you need that resistance. It's the reason why people use dumbbells and weights. And if you don't have professional equipment, you might use a bag of rice or some other heavy sack of potatoes. Or I think parents, how many of you have used your own kid? Use your own child as weight, right? And so you're using resistance. And that resistance is what allows your muscle fibers, your muscle cells, to get stronger because of that resistance. So Other places where we see this, during the pandemic, for example, there's nothing to do, so I got into gardening. I was growing bell peppers and tomatoes, of course, and I started to learn about gardening as a hobby. And because during the winters, the weather outside is a little bit colder and harsher, I thought, just putting the seeds and the small juvenile plants in an ideal condition with the perfect amount of sunlight, the perfect temperature, was the best way to prepare for the spring season. And what I learned was actually that in some cases you want to set up a fan. That's right. I said a fan, right? A twirling device that sends wind, air movement towards the plant. And why is that? Well, it turns out that when you get the fan to blow the air towards the stem, and this is all happening indoors, by the way, because most indoor homes don't have natural air currents going through. Obviously, when the windows are open, that's an exception. But generally speaking, in the winter, when it's cold and your windows are closed, there's really no air movement. And so that fan creates a little bit of artificial movement to push upon the stem of the plant. And that right there helps the stem to get stronger and stronger. It's just kind of a simple but pretty nifty concept, really. And of course, the last example I want to share with you is one that I did not know, but someone shared it with me. And so I'm going to pay it forward. I'm going to share it forward, if you will. It has to do with the phenomenon when baby chicks are trying to get out of their eggshell. So maybe some of you have done this yourself, but for my family and myself, when we want eggs, we go to the grocery store, and when we buy eggs, and we've never seen any of the eggs crack open to have a chick come out. But for those of you that have grown your own chicks and chickens, you know probably what I'm about to share. When you have a baby chick that's trying to get out of the egg, it's going to start poking. It's going to start, cracking the shell of the egg from the inside. And it's going to do that for quite some time. In fact, when I looked it up, it said it can take up to 24 hours. That is a very long time to be chipping away something. But the thing that's so neat about that is you, as the person, do not want to go in and crack the eggshell for the baby chick. And therefore, thereby you thinking you just helped that chick get out of the shell. Well, it turns out that that's actually very detrimental, that the chick actually, you have increased the probability that chick will die. It's almost destined to die because it did not have a chance to strengthen its neck muscle. So when it's trying to get out of the eggshell, all that effort, all that extra work and challenge and physical exertion actually leads to a good thing, which is for the chick to develop strong neck muscles and, of course, to be alive when it comes out of the shell. So hopefully that is kind of cool. And again, simple, nifty about resilience. Life is going to get messy. Life is going to throw curveballs. We're going to have setbacks, right? There is no such thing as a perfect life. We're going to encounter all kinds of adversity. But one of the first steps that we can do is to first change the way we think about them. And once we're able to change the way we think about them, then we can actually learn from it, and then thereby taking us to the next level, shall we say. And again, building up that resilience. And we're going to keep building it up. And then before you know it, you'll be that person where people are going to be asking you, how do you do it? How do you not let that completely stop you in your tracks? How are you able to keep moving forward? So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again for day 9. Have a great day, everyone.